Welcome to session 2 of our discussion regarding Don Miguel Ruiz's The Four Agreements. In this session, we will review agreement number 2. If you recall last week, we looked at being impeccable with our word. We offer a slide here to remember a part of the discussion that we had last week, and I invite you to go back and watch the YouTube video on our session 1. But we asked folks to really take a look at a time when they were impeccable with their word, how they felt empowered when they did so, and to look at a time when they were not impeccable with the word and how that felt and the decision they made about themselves when they did that. We also asked them to set an intention to speak with integrity, to say what they mean and to mean what they say. But the real idea that we did is we flipped the intention, be impeccable with your word, into an affirmation. I am impeccable with my word. Now, session 2, what we're going to discuss tonight is I do not take anything personally. Okay, that's a big one. That's a big one. And so one of the ways that we want to begin is to take a listen to an excerpt about both agreements, the agreement from last week and the agreement from this week.
I recently read The Four Agreements by author Don Miguel Ruiz. As children, our parents, teachers, and society told us we were either good or bad, right or wrong. We got so used to being judged that we developed an internal judge to judge ourselves when our parents, teachers, and society were not there to judge us. This internal judge, left unchecked and unchallenged, finds fault in everything we do and punishes us for making a mistake over and over. It's like we're living under an authoritarian ruler. We live cautious lives and waste a ton of energy monitoring our every move. The way out of this nightmare is to commit to the Four Agreements. When we commit to the Four Agreements, we free ourselves from the rule of the inner judge and can use the energy that was once used up by the inner judge to create a magnificent life. Agreement number 1, be impeccable with your word. The word impeccable comes from the Latin word impecatus, which means without sin. The biggest sin you can commit, author Don Miguel Ruiz says, is self-rejection. When you repeatedly judge yourself for making a mistake and habitually think, I'm an idiot, you're engaging in the mortal sin of self-rejection. When you agree to be impeccable with your word, you agree to stop repeating words that make you feel worse for something you did. Berating yourself is pointless and just distracts you from taking corrective action. It's like taking an exam for a second time and having someone behind you saying, you know you screwed up last time, right? Why did you screw up? If you merely set the intention to be aware of the words you're using to harm yourself and others, you will start to see significant changes in your life. It's like when a person sets an intention to eat less sugar and takes pictures of what he eats so he's more aware of what he's eating. He ends up reducing the amount of sugar he eats and feels better. It's not enough to stop judging yourself. You need to stop judging others, because the more you judge others, the more you will judge yourself. Judging others is like throwing a boomerang that returns to hit you in the back of the head. So when you go to bed each night, reflect on the quality of the words you said to yourself and others during the day. Imagine every word you said to yourself and others was broadcast to every phone in the world for everyone to hear. Then ask yourself, did my words uplift people or did they depress people? Agreement number 2, don't take anything personally. When a person insults you, imagine that person is full of poison and their words are poison being thrown at you. If you take their insults personally, you will ingest that poison. Once ingested, the poison will take over your emotional operating system and make it hard to think clearly. You will be enraged and feel like a victim. Stop feeling like a victim by remembering that nothing people do is personal. Even if someone takes out a gun and shoots you, it's not personal. They did not shoot you because of who you are. They shot you because of who they are. They would have not shot you if they weren't full of hatred. They wouldn't have shot you if they didn't have a horrible childhood and suffered constant abuse, or repeatedly fed lies that made them hate people who look like you. When you agree to not take things personally, you choose to see other people suffering and realize that their judgments and their hatred and their harmful words are just a reflection of the pain they are experiencing. Instead of thinking, why me, think poor them. Choose to be compassionate instead of choosing to be a victim. Now, this doesn't mean you live a passive life. If a person shoots you, ensure they go to prison, but not because you want revenge, but because it's for the greater good. This person is dangerous to themselves and others. Seek justice without being outraged and hating the person who wronged you. Because when you're full of hate and feel like a victim, you'll allow your inner judge to beat up on you.
When we are an advocate for ourselves and we make a commitment to be impeccable with our word, I'm not just talking about keeping our word with other people. It's significant and it's important and it's a part of the value that we have to live an integrous life, to keep our word out there. But the importance of being impeccable with our word, of how we stand up and advocate for ourselves, is essential in it. It is that analogy of putting your face mask on so that you can be fully available for others. It is that important opportunity to make sure that you are clear on what it is that you value and what will be the catalyst for you to say in your life, not on my watch, not in my life. I know who I am, and I am impeccable to the values that I choose to live my life by. That is an essential part of being impeccable with your word, which then leads very much to this next agreement. That agreement of, I will not take anything personally. Now, of all the agreements, that's the one in my life and on my planet has been the greatest opportunity for personal growth, because the environment that I grew up in, I always had to read the room. And I had this idea, because of whatever my mother or my older brother might be going through, I somehow felt it was my responsibility to bring peace to that situation. As a director of human resource development, of course, that same tendency came through, and I felt that responsibility in the corporate world to bring peace to any organizational situation that I found myself in, whether it was a merger, an acquisition, a downsizing, rapid growth, whatever was the catalyst for chaos within that work environment. I felt that it was my responsibility to bring peace, to make that a smooth transition. I even had a similar experience when I had the theater company and took the 12 actors to Shanghai 10 years ago for a production. I called our drama company the No Drama Drama Company. But often, what I learned in that experience is I took it personally when harmony wasn't the manifestation, when peace wasn't the manifestation, when the CEO didn't agree with me. Whatever it was that went wrong or created chaos or caused conflict, I took it personally and figured out or tried to figure out what I had done to sabotage the process. To, was I not smart enough? Was I not quick enough? Was I not clever enough? Was it, were my trainings not illustrative enough? Was my teaching materials dated? Whatever it was, I took on that responsibility. I took it personally when they didn't get it. And then I realized from the early days of Terry Cole Whitaker and that very first book title, what you think about me is none of my business. And then what I learned in that is I'm keeping the fourth agreement that we talked about. I'm doing my best always, and that is bringing those solutions to those situations. But if people don't get it, that's on them. And if they attack me, that's their reflection of their self that they're projecting on me. And so in the corporate world, we've all been in a corporate environment enough to know what that game could look like. The superstar around the conference table is the one that's looking for you to stumble so that they can come in and be the hero. I cannot tell you how many people I've worked on a group project with where, we worked really, really hard and really, really put forth an effort to get the thing done. And, I was in the front of the room making the presentation and somebody pointed up something that was missing. And then one of the people on our team said, well, yes, I realized that, but Jack wouldn't allow us to put that in the presentation. Really? But it was so they could showcase their own thing. So we're rife in a world where, it is so easy for us to take it personally. But here's what I learned in it. And here's the great opportunity. If you don't take it personally, you can be the one that suddenly is open to having the response to be able to say something like, oh, Charlie, if only you would have brought that up when we were together. It's almost like you've withheld it. But thank you for that, because that really, and to incorporate what they've just thrown out as a red herring and make it a golden fish, so that it is the opportunity to show that you on the spot can bring it all together. The same is true in relationships where we are in this situation where, the new term of the day is gaslighting. And when you have this experience of I think I was gaslit here. What is my response when someone says to you, that's not true? You're seeing it all wrong. No, I'm seeing it as I perceive it. I just guess we're seeing things, the same thing, differently. So that when you choose to be impeccable with your word and to not take things personally, you have this opportunity to tap into resources of thoughts, imaginations, scenarios, and ideas that will serve you to be even more impeccable with your word, even on a higher level. You're more prepared. And I would offer No one can take your power, but they can set up the situation when you give your power away to them because you've taken their belief and made it personal. You've taken their perception and made it personal. You've taken something that they've said. Black magic is how Don Miguel Ruiz refers to it, and said that must be true about me. And if anything they say in a negative, dark, poignant, and painful way is thrust upon you and you take it in, if you accept it, it's because there's a part of you that believes it to be true. So I want to invite us to have the same opportunity that we just talked about, that this week, as you are in conversations with people, as you are moving through different situations, and something is like, ooh, that hurt. Ooh, where'd that come from? Take a moment to pause and ask the question, why did this trigger me? Why am I being triggered by what they say? And work through that. Pull that apart, because that's where the healing begins. That's where the healing is, this opportunity. I love this story that Reverend Andriette told many years ago, and I've heard her tell it more recently. But she talks about this situation where every time she went down the stair steps, she could hear her father say, "Now be careful because you always stumble." And for decades, every time she went down the steps, she would hear her father say, "Now be careful, you always stumble." And then one day she was halfway down a set of stairs and she realized, my father never said that to me. He said that to my sister. And I took it on. And it's a fact, I took it personally. He wasn't even talking about me. Even if he said it to me that one time, he thought I was my other sister. He didn't realize it was me. And there's this opportunity to look at why we are triggered by different things that we take personally, and what are we going to do with it? So when somebody hits us with something, we immediately have to be impeccable with our word and our heart and remember who and whose we are and go, now, that's not true. That's not my experience. What is my experience? And why did that trigger me? What are your thoughts? What is it for you in your life, or what resonated with you about any of that, about taking things personally, or experiences when you took something personally in life or at work, that you're now in a place to notice and to heal?
I'll be honest, I can't remember a time when I actually did, but I remember I always tell people I've had jobs that people love to hate me in. I used to work for the IRS, and I was a bill collector for 5 years. So I'm constantly calling people on the phone, and I'm the last person that anybody ever wants to hear from. So I remember just, in doing so, doing the job, people cursing me out, that sort of thing. And I remember it's like, people say, how can you do that? How can you let people talk to you like that? And I'm like, I don't take it personal. They're not talking to me. They're upset with their situation, this sort of thing. And I just looked at it and rationalized it. It's like, they don't even know me. So all that stuff they're giving me, I'm not taking it on. So it was easy to go past it and do the work.
Gwen, thank you for sharing that, because it reminded me, as I said, back in the day when I was the director of human resources and over training and development. There was a company called QRS, Quick Response Services, that I was the director of HR. And the training officer was doing this training with the new customer service reps. And we had about 45 customer service reps.
Okay.
And I was observing her training during new employee orientation. And she said, you have to understand, if your phone rings, that other person is already angry. Because what it took for them to get to a place where they had to call someone to get something corrected, oh, they're already upset.
Yes.
Now, if you mirror their energy, if you mirror their anger, if you you're not going to talk to me that way, that kind of thing,
Yeah.
then we're in trouble, because we will
Exactly.
definitely lose the customer. And the number one way that she suggested that they break the potential for that to happen is she did this wonderful little closed eye process and said, who is your alter ego? Name them. Who is that person that will stand up for you no matter what and stand in your truth? And everybody had to come up with a name. Oh, I'm Bob, you know. And I remember Bob because at that same period of time, there was a wonderful commercial that played on the radio a lot about account temps. And the guy was, oh, I'm going to call in sick. That's fine. Go ahead and call in. We're bringing in Bob today from account temps. You go ahead, take that time off, you know. So, you know, my alter ego was Bob. Well, what that did is that was what we called the desk name that the customer service reps used. So when they would call you, they would never say, you would not answer the phone, hi, this is Gwen. You would answer the name, hi, this is Laverne, you know, or whatever it would be. That would be your alter ego name. But that immediately allowed them to keep it calm. Thank you for sharing. Who else? Who takes things personally? Sandria.
Well, I resemble that. I remember there was a teacher who was my friend at the beginning. Her name was Crone, interestingly enough. And then I started teaching one of her kids how to read, and she had not been successful with him and reading. And then she decided that she hated me, and people would come to me and tell me how awful I was and how I had been rejected at other schools because nobody wanted me, all of which was not true. But she led this smear campaign on me. And then one day when I came to get this little one from her class to do some reading tutoring with him, she confronted me in the hallway. And she just laid on a barrage of accusations and stuff just flying from all different kinds of places. And I allowed it to pass through me. It shocked me. And I just stood there and it went through and it landed somewhere behind me on the other side, and it didn't stick to me. And I realized at that point that there is something that you can not take it personally, because I never experienced that before. I have been, since that time, that's many years ago, off and on with taking stuff personally. But I also realized that I was starting to do the work on whose I am and who I am. And that idea that there is unconditional love regardless of what goes on, and that I belong to this spirit, and I am, and embodying the spirit, which actually did help me to let that just kind of filter through me, and it just didn't stop anywhere. So, and yes, I do take some things personally, but I also, when that comes up, again, we're going back to impeccable with your word. I remember that this has nothing to do with me. It has nothing to do. And people,
One of the thing, thank you for that. Thank you for sharing. One of the things that I want to invite you to have in your arsenal as something that you can pull out. If you're in a situation where somebody is dumping their truth on you, so to speak, their perceptions on you, and they're, you know, like in this and this and this and this, you have an opportunity to stand in your truth and say, and what else? And what else? Well, that immediately kind of disarms the situation. And then you have the opportunity to say, at some point, when you feel it in your intuition that it's the thing to do, to say, I want you to say everything that you have on your mind to say, because we will never do this again.
I love that. That's powerful.
And that is, you know, you're hearing them, because whatever words are coming out of their mouth, they're really asking to be heard.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you, what else? What else? What else? You know, so you have that opportunity. Janice, what are your thoughts?
So I was thinking when I was sheltering in place with someone for 3 months, and during that time, I had to really let go of being triggered on things that were being, well, yes, sheltering in place brought up a lot of stuff for people. And it brought up for us as a couple at that time, where there was accusations like, you're this, I'm that, you're this, I'm that. And when I was able to pull back and not get triggered by what was being said about what I was doing or who I was, I could get the information from the person better, so that that person had something going on and I couldn't hear it if I was being triggered in the, no, I'm not, or why are you saying that about me? Instead, well, I'll give you an example. The idea was like that I was controlling. So that was something that I was accused of. And when I sat back and I thought about it, and like, okay, so where's his experience of me being controlling? And there was a time where he wanted to clean out my cabinet of the and set up my Tupperware and everything. And when he started to do it, my first thought was like, get your hands out of my Tupperware. And then I realized, I said, what do I care? That is, so what he was experiencing of me, I got to see where that might be coming from. And I was able to step back and say, thanks, do it. Mm-hmm. So it gave me, by not being triggered or not taking it personally, but hearing the information in a way that I could translate it into what's truly going on here and what is the truth. And what is the truth is I really didn't care that he was touching my Tupperware, but the controlling part of me did, because it was my Tupperware. Mm-hmm. So when I stepped back and I just relaxed around it, I was able to see the other side. So to be able to hear what the person was saying by pushing aside the accusation or the finger pointing or any of that, to be able to say what's going on with me and what's going on with you.
Absolutely. Great lesson. Great lesson. Betty.
Well, my earliest memory of letting water pour over me like on a duck's back is when my brothers used to say, oh, you're a girl, you can't do anything. Mm-hmm. You're just a dumb bunny. And I was looking at them and thinking, how are they the judge? They can't, they're the ones. And so I just knew in my own being that I could show them anytime, any day. These are all older brothers, and so they were, anyway, it was, I guess, from that point of view, in my work experiences, I didn't get too excited when people were, my bosses were usually men, and if they had something to say to me that was not pleasant, then it triggered the memory in me of my brothers who talked a lot meaninglessly. And anyway, yeah, I think I could let it flow through me and see the other side of it and get to a place where we could talk about what the real issues were rather than
Right.
a reaction to it.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the gifts about the story that you told is you adopted a spiritual practice as a little one that you didn't really even have the full metaphysical words to describe what was going on, but you were true to yourself.
Yeah.
You trusted your intuition to go, this makes no sense. Not, this can't be. And, and what can happen in our lives when we take things personally, we start to second guess and doubt that internal mechanism that has our own best interest at heart. We make it wrong. And once we make it wrong, there is an emotional point of no return where we never believe it again. And we start to believe the press, if you will. And when we want to believe the press, when we want to take it personally, you're just a girl, you'll never be able to do anything. Well, if your brothers had hero status with you, you may very well have thought, if they say it, it must be true. So therefore, I'm going to look out in the world to find all sorts of examples of why my brothers are right. See, here's another example. The man got the job over me, or whatever it might be that we're overcoming. And so that's why I want to invite us that when we're up against something, that we immediately take the time out to say what's going on here. There's a wonderful story that Terry Cole Whitaker tells about the little boy and the dragon. And the little boy would wake up in the middle of the night because he would have this horrific dream where this fire-breathing dragon was chasing him down the hallway, and he would wake up and he would scream to his mother to come into the room. And she would say, what's going on? Oh, the dragon, the dragon came after me because I'm a bad little boy. The dragon came after me because I was a bad little boy. And the mother would calm him down and he would go back to sleep. And this dream was repeating itself and it was growing. And, not only would the dragon chase him out of his room and down the hallway, but, before he could wake himself up from it, the journey seemed to get further and further and further. And finally, one night, he's in the middle of this dream and he's running down the hallway and this dragon is throwing out the flame torches behind him and he hits a wall. And he turns around and he looks at the dragon and says, what are you going to do to me? And the dragon says, I don't know. It's your dream, kid. So sometimes we have to hit that wall.
Oh, that's terrible.
And turn around and stand in our power.
That's
and
right.
stand in our truth and realize, bring it. Don't leave anything else unsaid. And then notice, because this is the part of the conversation that we're really avoiding in all of this, If that person gets to the deepest part of their soul and gives out every withheld communication is there and does not then say to you, what do you have to say? Is there anything you need to say to me? You know something. You know something. Because in relationships where there's mutual growth, you may have that passionate, you may have that opportunity to learn. That may be exactly why you're in that relationship, to break through that thing. But if you notice when the rubber really hits the road and it's all about them and they don't even ask about you, you get to ask yourself that question. Now, why am I here?
Mhm.
Now look at this. Why am I here? Ooh, ooh, ooh. And we channel our dear beloved practitioner, Chuck, who made his transition. And we look at them either figuratively or metaphorically or literally and say, your good lies elsewhere. May you quick be to it. Your good lies elsewhere, not in my life, not on my watch. I'm going to be impeccable with my word, which means that I am not going to take any of the stuff that you throw at me personally, because I know it's all your projection. One of the great facilitators from my LifeSpring experience would say oftentimes to people, now don't get any of this on you, but what I'm about to say is blah, blah, blah. She was describing it. Don't take this personally. I just got a vent, not about you. It's a situation I'm upset with or whatever it might be. But we have this opportunity to really look at, when we take things personally, what's going on. Any thoughts? Any questions?
Yeah, I think it, again, what it means for me also is not taking it personally gives me the opportunity to listen to what's being said. Because if I'm not triggered and I'm not in a place of resistance or being defensive, I can hear what the other person's hurt is. I can hear what they're saying, and I can then respond in a very different way that's more loving and open, that shifts the vibration of that moment in time.
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen. What else? Good work. Good work.
Hard work.
All right. Now here's the homework.
Oh, gosh. Okay.
If you hear yourself being negative in your self-talk to you, I want you to ask yourself, is this my truth? Or have I taken something personally that somebody else said? So if you're in the car and you're about to approach getting the on-ramp onto the freeway and you realize that you've forgotten to turn on the turn signal, what do you say to yourself? Do you hear, oh, you always forget to turn on those turn signals? Are those your words? Or are those the words that somebody, your older brother, like in Betty's situation, that somebody else said to you that you've added to your repertoire just to be able to beat yourself up when you're out there being human? Notice that. Now, I'm here to give you a little inside secret. Your words that truly are your truth, that are really coming from your heart and soul, are loving words. If they're negative words, they came from somebody else and you just believed them. And so I want to invite you that if you hear yourself in that negative banter, that negative talk, to go, why am I being triggered by this? Why is this coming up? Why is this bothering me the way that it does? And that's the homework. Notice what it is that you allow yourself to take personally. Anything else before we go?
Well, for me, I tend to use words for like things like, well, if I drop something, I go, sweetie pie, what'd you just do? So I call myself sweetie pie. And I make sure that I use those kinds of words with me, especially if I'm going to do something. So I go, you little silly girl, what'd you do that for? So I make sure that my speech to myself is loving and fun and light. And I use specific, I do call myself sweetie pie a lot because I drop things a lot.
That's good. That's good.
That's a good strategy, yeah.
Yeah, it is. I've noticed that when I talk nicely and call other people more my love than I do to myself, but I'm turning that around. And if somebody comes up to me and does something, thank you, my love. Thank you, my dear. You're a godsend. You're an angel. Look what you're doing. God sent you right on time. And I need to do more. And I'm focusing on doing more for Sandria than I put out in the world.
Excellent.
Mm-hmm. Who else? Gwen, any closing thoughts?
Not so much. I've been practicing doing this sort of thing for myself because unfortunately my beginnings were really rocky and I didn't have any real support. Like you were saying, your alter ego or who this person is that will stand up for you is like, in terms of as a kid growing up, it's like there was nobody there for me. So I didn't feel. So, so I've had to turn it around just to make it this far. So that I'm not that bitter person that I could have become very easily. So yeah, I do that for me.
You remind me of what the entertainer Lizzo said last night at the Emmy Awards, because she has a television program, I think is called Big Girls or something such as that. And they asked her, why did you create a show called Big Girls? Because she said, when I was little, I longed to see somebody that looked like me, that was Black like me, fat like me, and beautiful like me on television. I needed to hear somebody say that to me. And then I realized I needed to say it to me.
Makes sense.
Makes sense. Yeah. That's it.
Betty, anything in closing?
I think it's been said. There's just a lot of, I think in a lot of ways we can build ourselves into a better feeling about who we are when we give ourselves some feedback, like Sandria was talking about and all of you have mentioned. So that is certainly needed. And I think of the 4 pivots. I know Dr. Jen Wright talks about that very thing. So the direction we need to go is to build the inner strength of who we are, because we can be very powerful.
Yes,
and nobody's going to stop that power. Doesn't reside in their control.